Welcome back. Before we carry on, let me tell you what the Deputy Minister said about funding in this particular commission.
The media is quite keen, or sections of the public are quite keen on lots of calls for commissions. Something happens, they want a commission of inquiry. But as has been said, commissions are there to find out the facts. Nobody's going to get punished. No compensation is going to be paid. If we're going to start moving to a situation where in every commission, everybody who's got an interest has a right to state funding, then where is that going to end?
Andries, if I can come to you on this, I mean, one of the points that both Professor de Vos has made and now the Deputy Minister, I think, is making, in a way, a similar point, is that we've over-legalized this, over-adversarialized, to use a horrible word, this particular process. And it's taking far too long. And we've got too many lawyers, and we should really be getting to a conclusion, which means, in a sense, it's going to be costing a whole lot more than it should be, precisely because of this endless process of repeated cross-examination, etc. Surely, to goodness, you would support a much more expedited inquisitorial system?
If the evidence leaders are going to be suitable to extract evidence from the people, why then are the police represented both by counsel as well as by private attorneys? That would still make the finding of the commission unfair, and it's a matter of principle. That's what I'm saying.
I accept that, and I hope that you do get the money. And if there's anything I can do, I'd be prepared to do it on your behalf for that particular point. But in the interim, can't we simply say we'll all get back and get this commission underway? Because the most important thing is that these people get to the truth as quickly as they can. Surely that's in the paramount interest of every single person who you represent.
Judge, the people that we represent are saying this, that they see when each time they come to the commission, that on the one side there is 7 advocates, on the other side there's just 1 for them. And they see that on other sides as well, there has been experts that have been brought internationally to come through and assist the cause or the interests of other parties. So they are saying there's no way in which they would like the status as it is to continue.
But all I'm asking is, I mean, you've basically had 2.8 million. You weren't complaining then. So until you get another 2.8 million, why don't you continue?
Judge, the 2.8 million that was paid was for the period October last year up until in December. And ever since this year started, up until now, there hasn't been any payment made.
Well, all right.
So
okay. I get where you come from. Yes. Whether, in fact, people watching this program will draw their own conclusions is another matter. But let me come back. I mean, there is a sense in which what is being argued is the case of considerable inequality of arms.
I'm not disputing that. But let me talk to you about another type of inequality. Mzokolo Magidiwana is a miner and a deponent in this case that's just been brought to the Constitutional Court. He earns 5,000 Rand a month. Now, Advocate Mpofu assessed to the court that he wants 17,000 Rand a day, and that comes to well over 300,000 Rand a month if you consider that they're 20...
Cheap by what the others are probably
cheap by what the others are getting, but substantially more than most miners will earn in many years. And that is the grossest inequality that's at play here. And for Advocate Mpofu and his team to now be handing around buckets, asking people to raise money so that they can defend the miners, asking poor people to raise money so they can defend the miners, that to me seems wrong.
But I'll tell you what he's suggesting is a slightly more, I accept that, but let me put this to you. The point that I understand you're making is that the miners themselves look at this and they see a battery of lawyers for the one side and their guys on the one side battling to make ends meet, and they think that's unfair too.
There's no doubt about it, but that's where Advocate Mpofu needs to exercise leadership. I've worked with the social movement for much of the last decade and a half, and we too would go to court with one advocate, and the state would have several advocates against our one, and we would consistently do well nevertheless. Advocate Mpofu should say to the miners, we can do well despite that. you can be adequately represented despite the unfairness over here.
Okay, I'm sure he does represent them well. Let me ask you this, Pierre. A very eminent senior counsel, one of the finest this country's produced in a very long time, who's now a judge, wrote last year as follows: there comes a point when the gulf between the highest and lowest earners in society is too obscene to justify. Should a top advocate earn 50 times more than the teacher, 100 times more than a menial worker? This particular debate we're having, I wanted to have not because of Marikana generally, but because of this is supposed to be an honourable profession. And I think this particular point made by this particular author really troubles me, and yet very little spoken about it.
Well, I think it's actually a broader point. It's a point about how society is structured
Yes,
in general.
yes.
It's about lawyers getting so much more paid than the clients they represent. It's about the bosses of a mining company getting so much more paid than the workers that is actually earning the money for the mine. So there's a huge problem in the way things are structured. And I think that is the way that we have chosen to structure our society. We must either rethink that, or we have to try and work around it. So, and in this case, I think, despite the fact that there will be distrust, we have to try and create commissions that is going to instill trust in people without the lawyers being present.
But could I just ask you this? The point that was made by Andries was this, Pierre. He says, well, our people look at this and they see an unfairness. There's also a sense of perception here.
Well, there's a perception, and the perception is not only in cases if there are lawyers present and the one team is bigger than the other one. There's also a danger that even if there are no lawyers and there's only a commissioner and so on, the people in South Africa are not very trustful. So that is another problem, and that's maybe one of the reasons.
I have to close, but I wanted to ask Andries one final question, and I just want to basically put the point that Nathan Geffen has made, although I've argued with him about it, but let me put this to you, Andries. I accept what you say. Let us assume absolutely inequality of arms and perception and legitimacy problems, but wouldn't it be an extraordinary exhibition of how honourable this profession is if your team said tomorrow morning, we're prepared to carry on pro tem because it's a greater point to have us there to ensure that fairness actually occurs than not?
Judge, it needs to be remembered that as at today, the volume of paper, of pages that have been read, it's roughly 12,000 pages. And the commission was only envisaged to end in 4 months, which was at the beginning of January.
And one wants to ask why it's taken so long.
We are saying,
lawyers also.
We do not know. It's the
you know that
it is the state. It is the state, Judge, that keeps on having postponements.
Make my day.
Because the extent of work that needs to be done.
Make my day and just say that, in fact, yes, we'd carry on for another month or 6 weeks or whatever it is. Because I think if you did that, the whole public would come behind you and you'd get your money a lot quicker.
The people are saying that we need to have this to seem to be fair, at least. We have tried to approach even the court to an extent that we ran through to the Constitutional Court to seek answers to the interim funding that we are seeking. And we're taking instructions from people that we represent. So if they say you cannot continue and go there, we will not continue.
Well, of course, it depends what you're telling them. Sorry, but if you said to them, we will continue and you'll get the same quality, I'd find it rather surprising that they'd say no.
How then do you know that it's only going to be for this month? Or how well do they know that it's going to be for this month?
Well, because it would be, I think that you'd have the higher moral ground there. But that's another matter. I know we've run out of time on this. I've given you the point, and I'm sorry if I can't develop it further. I have to, unfortunately, end this particular program because it's really important, and Pierre de Vos is right. It's not just about lawyers, even though we've been speaking about it, but it's also, as I suspect our guests have been saying, it is about access to justice. And it is about what the commitment to the profession is. And it is about the question of how poor people are properly served by lawyers. Now, there's no doubt about it that there's been an inequality of arms here. There's no doubt about it there's been a great deal of unfairness. But what's the role of the legal profession in ensuring that justice is delivered? That is truly the problem of this particular program. And to answer that particular problem, you be the judge. Goodbye.
moves. enca.com.